Upgrade your laundry routine with a durable and reliable Maytag laundry pair at Lowe's. Like the new Maytag washer and dryer with performance-enhanced stain-fighting power. Designed to cut through serious dirt and grime. And what's great is this laundry pair is in stock and ready for delivery when you need it the most. Don't miss out. Shop Maytag in-store or online today at Lowe's.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. When your computer breaks, you don't wait for it to magically start working again. You fix the problem. So why wait to hire the people your company desperately needs? Use Indeed's sponsored jobs to hire top talent fast. And even better, you only pay for results. There's no need to wait. Speed up your hiring with a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Unfiltered discussions, unexpected guests. No topic is off limits, from sex and relationships to the human condition, personal anxieties, and so much more. The only talk show of its kind in the world. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Hello and welcome, and here's what you're going to learn on our Tuesday night program. Psychopaths. We often picture remorseless killers or slick manipulators with no empathy. But what if the science, the research, the studies that idea is built on are all fiction? In 30 minutes time, we'll talk to someone who challenges the notion of a psychopath. How what we think of them are mostly from Hollywood myths and misconceptions in the legal system. You'll learn why the very concept of a psychopath might not even be real at all. And after that, if the following thoughts ever enter your mind, you might want to stay tuned. Is AI coming for my job? Am I going to lose everything to a robot? Will I ever be able to work again when a cyborg just does my job for me? We're all doomed. Well, you shouldn't panic, at least not yet. Researchers are saying that AI has not come for your job. It's just shifted your duties, and you probably won't get fired. Yet. That's a conversation we'll have next hour. That is some of what we'll learn. That is some of what we'll cover on tonight's show. There will be more, but for now, let's dive in.
Want to be part of The Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
And in rude and aggressive sea otter news, sea otters attacking people on surfboards, stealing their surfboards, and surfing on them news. We are joined by sea otter expert foreign correspondent Tony Five, who reports live at the scene of his flat in England to tell you about what happened in California. Tony, welcome to the show.
David, always a pleasure, my friend, as leading the cutting edge on all vermin-based attacks, David. Santa Cruz, California, lovely part of America, lovely part of the world, a lovely sea otter. Apparently these poor old surfers, they've got to keep a lookout for these little things who are stealing their surfboards, biting their feet, jumping on their surfboards as they're running around, these little sea otters. And unfortunately, this sea otter did it out in the sea and held this poor surfer hostage for 20 minutes until the rescuers came in.
She was kicked off of her board, and the sea otter was having fun. They're sort of like sea puppies, except they're not tame, they're not domesticated, and they will bite you.
I just think, they call him the notorious Otter 841. Now, again, trying to work out how they know it's the same sea otter and it's not a little group of them or a rat pack, as I want to call them. But they went on like a stealing spree. I don't know what it is. They just ended up liking surfboards and grabbing them and just running away. Yeah.
I'm looking at a photo. This woman is just paddling next to her board waiting while the sea otter is planted on it on the attack position. And they will bite you. They will mess you up. They are adorable, but you do not want to be approaching them. It's kind of like foxes that you have roaming the streets of London. I saw one last time I was in London. I call them forbidden dogs because they're adorable. They're so cute. They look like something that it would just come up to you and be friendly. They're very curious, but the second you get too close, they'll bite you.
Oh, yeah, they're feral, absolutely feral. And unfortunately, if you live anywhere in urban London, you'll be very used to the mating sounds of the urban fox. It is so unbelievably loud. You will hear that all night, every night, mostly in urban areas. It's insane.
If there's any Fox listeners to our show, they might be incredibly aroused right now, Tony. That was a very accurate and erotic, if I might say, depiction of what the fox sounds like.
David, do you do a content warning for foxes?
I should have. If there's any sensitive foxes listening with their children, you might want to be advised.
Yeah.
Fox warning. What is happening with this show, dude?
No idea, David. No idea, my friend.
Oh, man. How are we not yanked off air yet? That's the cliffhanger. At every commercial break, it's not just coming back with what we tell you you're going to hear. It's coming back at all.
Yeah, will we be back? Yeah, like after the break, will we be back? I know you always lead the show with after the break, after the break, but actually your lead should be after the break. Will you hear from me again?
Is this the last you'll ever hear our voices?
Yeah.
Well, if people turn off their radios, which they might, it will be the last they hear their voices. But as I've always said, we test incredibly well in the demographic of people whose radios are A, broken, B, they're broken and set to on, and C, unable to change the station. In that demographic, we test unbelievably well.
Yeah, and F off, as in, like, the radios are off. Great demographic.
Function off.
Yeah.
All right, Tony, these otters are running wild. I guess otters aren't really things you get in the UK, are they?
No, I see these wonderful videos of otters and they sleep on their backs and they hold hands with their mates. I think they're beautiful, but we don't really get sea otters. No, we don't get them in the UK.
They're basically like the urban foxes of the ocean. They're very adorable, very cute. They're very curious. Don't get too close to one. And if one takes your surfboard, I'm pretty sure that's the otter surfboard now.
Yeah, just leave it.
There is a story on like the front page of like a major publication here in the US about a Lego theft ring where they've recovered like hundreds of beheaded Lego figures. The police are involved, also in California and Santa Rosa. Lego is a big ticket item. It's like one of the most expensive toys. Having gone to a toy store as an adult, I realized why my mom was always saying no when I picked the expensive Lego, because they're like hundreds of dollars. And I guess counterfeit and smuggling is a problem.
Well, you see, I was a huge Lego fan growing up, right? Building stuff, whatever. And I think it's a generational toy phenomenon, right? Now, I've made that up, but I'm going to give you the benefits of it. As the people my age, your age, who played with it as children have grown up, obviously our disposable income has gone up, so they can afford to put these $5,000, $10,000 Lego sets.
No, come on. Last week I covered the most expensive set to date, and it's $1,000. Not $10,000, but still $1,000 for a Lego set.
Isn't that the Millennium Falcon? Is that the one? The 1,000?
No, it's the Death Star. Death Star.
Oh, is it the Death Star?
You were close.
I was close. Same Star Trek thing. So basically, it's kind of one of these things that it's very expensive, but I'm sure on the second-hand market, they're even more expensive. I'm pretty sure they are.
The out-of-print collector's items, like the ones you can't get anymore that aren't made by Lego anymore, like limited edition Spider-Man Legos, those ones can fetch the numbers you just said, $10,000, $15,000 on the market.
I'm sure there was a Spider-Man. I read it about a Spider-Man that had fetched so much money. But the image of this thing is horrific. It's basically these bodiless yellow heads of Lego all stacked up. If you didn't know better, and basically if you were just an ordinary Lego citizen, you'd think that was an absolute serial killer. It looks horrific.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a photo from the carnage of this Lego thief who was apprehended. Do you buy and assemble Lego as an adult? I recently saw about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a limited edition Seinfeld set logo that was Jerry's apartment with a little stand-up stage and all the characters, the 4 characters and Newman.
Okay.
And it was when it was for sale, it was about $70. But now you can only get it on the secondary market for like $200.
Oh,
and I thought to myself, you know what? Maybe I'll get it. And then I'm like, there's no way I'm spending $200 on a Lego. So I haven't bought it.
I agree. So like, I would love to have that ability to sit down. I have friends. I have police officer friends. I have people in some serious jobs who love Lego. They find it the most relaxing thing. They buy it. They sit over the weekend and they do it with their children. So no, I can see why it's a thing. I wish I had the time, inclination and motivation to do it.
I'm picturing some British cop who's like all day beating up crooks with a billy club, and then he goes home at night and he assembles his Millennium Falcon.
It just sits there with it. Yeah, it's very interesting. They have like regional special editions. So like you can get stuff in England, in the London Lego store where people queue. Again, insane. I will walk past it in Leicester Square. There is a queue around the Lego store for people that just want to go and buy Lego figures. Amazing.
When we come back with Tony Five, our foreign correspondent, we'll ask you the question, how weird is your weirdest friend? The number is 1-888-505-6644. That's 1-888-505-6644. Your weirdest friend, Tony and I are going to talk about that. And if you've got just a bizarro in your circle of companions, I said the word friend too many times, so I subbed it out with companions. If you got a bizarro, call us, let us know about them. Is Tony Five my weirdest friend? Unfortunately not. I wish you were, Tony. I got to say, I wish you were. I wish my life were that simple, that you were my weirdest friend.
Me too, David. Me too.
All right, we'll be back with foreign correspondent Tony Five and your weirdest companion. Mate. I got to stop saying the word friend in a moment. Pal.
There you go.
We'll be back.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by Marshalls, where you never have to compromise between quality and price. The buyers at Marshalls hustle hard, working to bring you great deals on brand name and designer pieces. Because Marshalls believes everyone deserves access to the good stuff. Visit a Marshalls store near you or shop online at marshalls.com.
Most shows deliver serious news that you can use. As a point of differentiation, we give you news you can't use. The Last Show, with David Cooper and special foreign correspondent, Tony Five.
Oh, Friendsgiving. That's what I'm going to be doing in November. I live here in the U.S. I'm from Canada, so I got no Thanksgiving traditions because Canadian Thanksgiving was just last week, a week ago. We're here with foreign correspondent Tony Five, talking friendship and weirdest friends. Tony, welcome back to the show. This is your topic. You go ahead and run with it.
So, my friend, we were talking earlier about, obviously, our Thanksgiving. So, for those who don't know, every year I fly over to New York and meet David's circus of friends, which I believe is what they call a gathering of David's friends, a circus, because we have people who are circus clowns. We have 2 clowns, in fact, this year.
There will be 2 clowns, one specializing in like burlesque clowning, like sexy clowning, and one specializing in balloons. Yeah. And she makes like 5 figures at a balloon gig. She makes like balloon costumes. She'll get paid like $10,000 to do a corporate balloon gig. This woman has a career in ballooning, and she's doing better than you and me, I'll tell you that much.
Okay, so the fact that you can say corporate balloon gig with a straight face and in all seriousness, it blows my mind. Dear listener, I cannot believe that he says stuff like this. So I said to him earlier on, dude, like, you've had people work for you who quite happily steal for you. And you just think it's funny. You just
you're not work for me. You're talking about my cat sitter. You're like, do you still keep in touch with your cat sitter? And I'm like, not really, because she steals my clothes when she cat sits.
And you say it so matter-of-factly that it absolutely kills me.
I know her and I trust her. You don't have friends like this where you trust them to be themselves?
No, I don't have people that take my underwear and wear them. No. No, I don't. Sorry.
Well, she wears Miranda's nighties, not her underwear, her nighties, but still. That's my girlfriend. Now, the cat sitter wears my girlfriend's nighties. Boom. That makes sense now. I do have a friend who likes to steal little objects from people's houses, like insignificant things. He once stole my cat laser that I used to, play with my cat. Yeah, I've got some weird friends, but you must have some weird friends too, man.
Oh, there's 2 that spring to mind. I've got a guy who is an uncontrollable, right, now how can I say this radio friendly? He likes to self-pleasure himself, and he's got no control over it.
He likes to play video games, if you know what I mean, and he can't stop.
And he can't stop, and it's
playing video games.
It's quite obvious, and he's been open with it, with me, my girlfriends, my friends.
So he needs to be in therapy, this guy. He's got a real problem with video games, with playing video games with himself. It's a family show, Tony. This is a family show.
His name's George, and we went to university together. And the reason we found out one day, and I still have a picture of it somewhere, is that somebody had opened a cupboard, and he was in the cupboard with a magazine.
Yeah, a video game magazine. All right, got it.
And we all thought it was funny. And then, when you're young, it's kind of hilarious, and you're like, oh, he's into that. And he never had a girlfriend, which was fine. And then one day we were driving somewhere and he goes, guys, we've just got to stop for a bit. We're like, okay.
Like at the petrol station?
No, at an abandoned theme park. So this guy jumped out, ran off to, do you remember this thing in Disneyland, It's a Small World?
Yeah, like from Disneyland?
Imagine a UK crappy version of that, which has got the miniature trains. So he went over there and played video games on that on his own.
Play video games, yeah. We're a family show. He likes playing video games with himself. That's it. That's all Tony means.
And then came back and asked for wet wipes because obviously the controller wasn't very clean.
Yeah.
Right?
Can get dirty with the sweaty palms
With
or
the sweaty
whatever.
palms. So he did that.
Are we going to be on the air after the commercial break because this is too inappropriate? That'll be the cliffhanger. That will be the cliffhanger. Okay, that's enough of this friend. We get the image of the friend playing video games.
So there's that guy. And then there's another guy who tends to talk, but at the beginning of the sentence, he talks like this. And at the end of the sentence, he talks like that. We can't work out why. He has a very quiet voice at the beginning. At the end of the sentence, he's really loud. No idea why.
He crescendos into his sentences.
Correct. He's not even Italian.
I have two extremely loud friends. I don't know what to say with them other than like, one's married, and I'm like, doesn't her husband say anything to her? She's not obnoxious. She's just like 50% louder than the loudest person you know. Everything she says is screaming. And it's like uncomfortable being around. Like I'm on the subway train with her and everyone's looking at her. I'm like, hasn't anyone, maybe I'm the one who needs to tell her that she needs to lower the volume of her voice. If she were obnoxious, she'd be the worst person in the world. But she's just like a normal person, a 50% louder than you can imagine.
But has you just got no sort of self-insight into
I don't
how
know.
loud she is?
Maybe her hearing's bad and she just doesn't like normalize her own voice. I know I'm loud. People always tell me I'm loud, but I'm on like the normal end of loud. She's like, it hurts to be near her.
She's actually damaging your hearing being next to her. But does she not respond to other people looking at her, or does she not care?
I guess she doesn't care. I don't know her that well. And my other friend who's loud is just like slightly louder than everyone else. I guess I keep on saying, why doesn't anyone say anything to these people? As I say that, I realize it should be me. I should take the bullet.
I just think to myself, I'd love to be have that lack of self-awareness. Sometimes I'm so self-conscious about things, and I worry. I don't want to offend people, and I don't want to say anything or do even like to the point where it sort of inconveniences me.
That can be an obnoxious trait in a friend, where they're constantly worried about being embarrassed, that their behavior's like controlling, and they never say what they want, or they never they're scared to like say what they really think, and there's something that fundamentally not that straightforward about always being embarrassed about being embarrassed, I guess.
I wouldn't say it's on the obnoxious scale. I would say it's just on the self-respect scale. I wouldn't want to make other people feel uncomfortable. So not really for my thing. Like if somebody's being inappropriate, like on a tube, maybe there's children about and the people are swearing and stuff. I think I feel kind of self-conscious then, because I'd be like, oh my God, that child's like 3 and this person's talking about all sorts of stuff. So I'm like that. And that kind of happens on the tube and the underground a lot here.
I swear on the train, do I make you embarrassed? But I usually look to see if there's a kid. If there's no kid, if I'm around 10 kids, I'm not going to swear. But I'm that person swearing on the train. Do I embarrass you?
No. But do you ever have those friends who believe that they're in their own sitcom?
They're the main character, yeah. Main character syndrome, definitely.
Do you have friends like that? So that's weird, but what happens when you have like a few people who have got main character syndrome?
It's called the diva face-off, and they usually fight. And I have conflicts with 1 or 2 friends, and the main reason we don't get along is because we're too similar, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, see, I don't have friends like that. So I've seen it where people are going out and they're talking, but they're always talking to an audience. Like it's just you and them, but they're making eye contact with everybody about them and they're getting everybody else involved in their conversation. I just find it I just can't handle it. It freaks me out. I want to go and hide under the sofa.
Weirdest friend you have, though? Is it just those two? Is it just the video gamer and the crescendoing voice person? There's got to be, you got to have a weird friend out there.
Video game person is weird because absolutely no embarrassment, okay, no shame.
Well, I like that. Like touting social boundaries like they don't exist.
That person should be on a sex offenders list, David. What are you talking about? I like that. That's how people get away with things that ends up on CNN, right?
Fair enough.
The other guy who's loud, no, that's just strange that he just does it and he doesn't know it. you must have these friends. I have friends that they always want to do better than you. You know, you earn $5, he earns $10. You have one car, he has a better car than you.
I got no time for people like that. I got no time for people like that. I don't think I have a single friend like that in my life anymore. Like a know-it-all, everything I do is better, I know more than you. I got no time for people like that. Life is too short to have a friend like that.
I can imagine that you don't have time for that because you kind of come across as kind of like very easy and lazy going. But I've noticed from certain ways that you just won't put up with things. You know, like you're quite stuck on your direction. If you believe in something, you'll be quite happy to stick on it.
If I say I know something and then I don't, to me that's a teaching moment. That's a moment of curiosity. That's an exciting time to update my understanding. When people, like, the worst possible thing for them is they say a fact and the fact's wrong and they're so embarrassed and that's horrible and they have to know everything and be so smart. I cannot stand that trait in a person. Tony Five, our foreign correspondent. Tony, you are one of my weirdest friends. I kind of buried the lead. I mean, I got other weird ones, but I say that with great affection. Thank you for being here.
David, I need to do something with balloons. See you later.
All right, Tony Five, there he goes. Coming up next, what if our definition of psychopath is wrong and doesn't really map to the way people are in reality? There would be odd consequences for our mental health diagnoses and for the court systems.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
When did making plans get this complicated? It's time to streamline with WhatsApp, the secure messaging app that brings the whole group together. Use polls to settle dinner plans. Send event invites and pin messages so no one forgets Mom's 60th. And never miss a meme or milestone. All protected with end-to-end encryption. It's time for WhatsApp. Message privately with everyone. Learn more at whatsapp.com.
We're broadcasting relationship truths and scientific discoveries with a comedian's touch. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Everyone thinks they know what a psychopath is. Cold, dangerous, unfeeling. But what if you've got it wrong? I want to ask the question, what is a psychopath really? And does such a person even exist? I am here with a forensic epistemology professor at the University of Toronto who's written on this subject, and we're going to dig right into it. His name is Rasmus Larsen. Rasmus, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right, it's a simple question. What is a psychopath? Answer in one question. Boom, the interview is done. I'm kidding, of course, but I know there's like a psychology underpinning. There's kind of a scientific foundation. We hear the phrase dark triads, which maybe you'll define for me. But like, what is a psychopath when you really look at it?
I mean, there's of course like a formal psychiatric explanation. It's a little bit of controversy whether it's a distinct diagnosis or not. But usually when we say a psychopath, we talk about a type of personality disorder, which of course doesn't say much in itself. But it's traditionally been this idea that you have these clinical prototypes. So like a typical person you meet in clinical context as a clinician that appear very shallow, no emotions, no empathy, very callous, cold-hearted, and have no problems committing violent acts and don't really understand why this should be such a big deal or something along those lines. You know, it's been kind of caricatured in popular movies and TV shows and so on, which is not exactly the correct clinical image. But if you think of people like, you know, Anton Chigurh from, you know, No Country for Old Men or something like that, you have that stereotype of a very non-emotional person who's just like very, very sinister and so on. That's kind of like the general picture that we have, the concept of psychopathy or the psychopath, if you will.
When we talk about some of these personality traits, though, like some of them actually would cause someone to excel in certain positions, like a CEO, you know, might have some of these like narcissistic traits, these Machiavellianism traits, and they might actually be like a well-adjusted person. They might be a little cuckoo bananas to the average person, but they're not doing anything sinister other than maybe like aggressive business tactics, which are probably sinister in their own right, but that's a conversation for another day.
Sure.
this breakdown of like dark triad traits, can you tell me a little bit about that?
The dark triad traits is a little bit different from psychopathy as a disorder. The dark triad traits is like a separate thing that psychologists study. It's a more elaborate form where you both have psychopathy and Machiavellism and things like that, where you're like more like manipulative type of person. It's kind of like a separate thing. It's not really a clinical study of it's it's psychopathy researchers are rarely engaged in the dark triad research and vice versa, right? So
that was a really kind way of saying you've got it a little bit wrong here, which I appreciate. Let's talk about this formal diagnosis of psychopathy.
Yeah, let's do that.
It may not hold up under scrutiny, right?
No, so that's the thing, right? So we have studied this for like systematically using real empirical science for, let's just say, about four decades. Of course, we've been studying it for longer, but it's the past 4 decades have been a lot of research on this. And it started with us finding a conventional way of selecting who are the individuals we were talking about. That took some time historically. We settled it somewhere around in the 1990s. And once we kind of agreed this is the type of person we're talking about, then we started to include them in, experimental psychological studies and so on. And the interesting story here is that we haven't found what we thought we would find. We haven't really, any of all those things I just mentioned about psychopathy, it's just been almost impossible or it has been simply not proven in or shown in any of the empirical studies. So simple things such as if they claim that they have no emotions, for example, well, it turns out that they have exactly the same sort of like emotional spectrum as normal individuals. Claims about impulsivity, it turns out there's not really much there. There's same impulse control as any other person. There's been all sorts of claims about this diagnosis, and we just haven't been able to find any evidence of it.
But in some cases, we still treat this diagnosis as kind of binary, like does someone have it or does someone not? I want to talk about the Hare Psychopathy Checklist, which is a tool used in courts. Can you tell me more about that and why this might not be a great tool for courts to be using at all?
Yeah, so in the 1990s, go back to 1980, but in the 1990s, it became this conventional way of using the so-called Hare Psychopathy Checklist revised. The revised is that it was revised in the 1990s. And it's this tool that psychologists use to select who is this stereotype we're talking about. So if you score high enough on this checklist, you can be given the label psychopath or psychopathy, if you will. Now, and this is when people do this in the legal system, they usually then make inferences about that person, right? So we don't just do it for fun because we want to waste our time, right? We do it for a reason. So when we label a person with psychopathy because they scored high on this, we then say all sorts of things about them, that they're extraordinarily dangerous, that they're untreatable, that they have all sorts of empathy difficulties, and all sorts of things are being said about it. And this is really the big story here. All those things that are being said about psychopathic persons, in the 1990s, we thought it was evidence-based, that it was based in some sort of robust scientific work. What we have found out the last 3 to 4 decades is that that's simply not the case. So now we have this beast in the legal system that's still being used for all the wrong reasons, right?
And it's not just being said of individuals, it affects real people's lives in the criminal justice system. It might affect sentencing, for example, and yet we're using this diagnosis that might not map to reality.
Absolutely. That's the big story, I think, behind all this. The science is what it is. In the science, we don't really care what our results are. But the thing is, we have something here that has real life implications for real people. Something as in the United States, for instance, if you have a death sentence hearing, a capital sentence hearing, one thing to argue for why we should give capital sentence to a person, so the prosecution has to show this, is that the person is considered a chronic risk to fellow inmates and staffs. And if you can show that, then you can convince a judge that we should do this instead of like capital sentence instead of life without parole. And the psychopathy checklist has been frequently and routinely used for making this argument. So it can literally be a decision between life and death, right?
Yeah, it's not just a bunch of nerd psychologists. I'm sorry, that was unfair. It's just not a bunch of researchers like writing papers and classifying people. It can be life or death, this thinking.
Yeah, for sure. This is how it goes, right? So we scientists, we invent, we come up with things, we study things, and sometimes those things that we come up with, they kind of get hijacked by something like the legal system, and then it's really hard to reel in once you have something that is like on loose in the legal system. That's what we're finding, at least.
Could this be a possible zombie idea? Basically a concept in science that just doesn't die and it's just around with us, even though the underpinning of it might not be great?
Yeah, this is one of my main arguments in my work is that I think, so we have these ideas, we call them zombie ideas, is these ideas that are dead, that really has no scientific backing, but they still continue to infect unknowing minds like students and so on, and therefore they keep on living in the sciences. We have had these kind of ideas before, like multiple personality disorder, another psychiatric diagnosis that turned out to be a nothing burger. I think psychopathy might be the next one that we will uncover.
Another one is that your blood vessels, when stretched around the world, are 100,000 kilometers, which is just like somebody said it in writing in passing like 80 years ago without any scientific research. And then it got quoted in all these studies and now it's a fact. Like these little ideas can kind of infect science. Well, we're here talking about whether psychopathy is real. You can check out Rasmus Larsen's book, Psychopathy Unmasked. That's available wherever books are sold. And we come back, I want to answer a question that I've been thinking about. Are psychopaths born or made? And this is like a question, and its answer is deeply ingrained in popular belief, and the real answer here might be interesting. So we'll be back with Rasmus Larsen in just a moment.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
When it comes to what your family eats and drinks, you know your choices matter. You're the expert because you know what fits your life. And getting it right starts with good information. That's why America's beverage companies are sharing more information about our ingredients at goodtoknowfacts.org. No spin, no judgments, just the facts straight from the experts for more than 140 beverage ingredients. Visit goodtoknowfacts.org.
Prepare to have your mind blown as we delve into the complexities of relationships, explore the cutting edge of science, and celebrate the bizarre and beautiful absurdity of the world around us. This is The Last Show with David Cooper.
Evil, calculating, conniving. These are the traits of what you think a psychopath might be, but you might be wrong about all that. What is a psychopath really? Is it an accurate classification of someone? Does a person like that even exist? That is what I'm here talking about with Rasmus Larsen, who's a forensic epistemology professor at the University of Toronto. Rasmus, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, David.
The big question here when dealing with psychopaths, I think for a lot of people, and it's a belief that's deeply ingrained. Are psychopaths born or is it their environment? Is it nature? Is it nurture? I think a lot of us think that you're just born evil. Is there something wrong with that kind of thinking?
There is. There are many things I would say wrong with that way of thinking. It's certainly true that certain psychological traits can be inherited. It seems like that there's some inheritance component to psychological traits. So how strong that is really still an open question. But whether that also results in specific behaviors, it might sound really contradictory, but the link between psychological traits and actual behaviors is really a loose one. So just because you have certain psychological traits that you might associate with evil, such as lacking empathy, for example, that doesn't necessarily mean that you will end up doing really evil deeds, right? So it's a very mushy and very murky question, really, at the end of the day, right? To talk about inheritance when we talk about something as complex as human psychology and behavior.
Well, could empathy be learned? Like if I have a child who's, not behaving great, can I teach them empathy? Or is it something that you're just innately born with? Or is the answer, we don't quite know?
Yeah, I think it's probably the latter. It's very hard to study, by the way, empathy. It's not easy to measure, first of all. But yeah, we also not quite sure whether empathy is such a driver of moral or good behavior. Often empathy has been highlighted by many researchers as often what actually drives you to do really bad things. For example, you prioritize one group of people over others because you empathize only with the one group but not the other. So there's all sorts of ways it can be flipped around. You can see. So that whole field is very much in the open, if you will.
Yeah, and I care more about people's actions than their underlying motives. Like if I donate a lot to charity because I want my name on a plaque, I'm still donating to charity.
Yeah, exactly.
Or because I really feel for the people I'm donating to. The end result is the same. I'm not too worried about the motives there. But this image of like the baby born in the crib and being evil, I feel like Hollywood does us no favors. Like popular portrayals of psychopaths. Are these stereotypes like damaging to us? I'm thinking like Hannibal Lecter and this kind of stuff. Do we still kind of see people that way when that's not the way it actually works?
Yeah, I think popular culture does a lot of disservices. This is not the only one, obviously, but they tend to make reality much simpler than it really is, right? Sure, there are people who are perhaps born. Again, it's very hard to study as a scientist. There are maybe people who are born with unsavory personality characteristics, but it's also equally true that people learn unsavory behaviors and kind of turn them in, to bad people. So it's really, how do you dissect it even? And at the end of the day, I'm personally, I take the view, perhaps I'm not sure it's that interesting question at the end of the day. It's, as you said, what really matters is whether people behave in ways that makes sense, I guess, or is good, if you will.
So if there's no such thing as a psychopath, or maybe I'll put that less definitively, if our current definition and classification of a psychopath doesn't get it right, what does that mean for, like, I don't know, the court system, our morals? Like, what changes or what views would you like shifted in society if we're not getting it right when we classify people as psychopaths?
Yeah, I mean, David, I think I want to make 2 points for that. The one is that it's still a controversial thing to say that psychopathy doesn't exist, that is not a proper diagnosis. It would take me a long time to unpack what I mean by that. So some researchers are on my side and quite many, but there's also other researchers who would say, no, I'm not quite sure whether that's the case. And they still want to reserve the possibility that there are these individuals out there. So that's one thing, right? But what does this mean for the court system? It doesn't really, like, the true question for court system or the legal system broadly defined is really whether we psychologists can go in and pinpoint a person that is like extraordinary compared to everybody else in there, right? That's what we try to do when we invent tools like the Hare Psychopathy Checklist Revised, is that we claim that we have some sort of ability to go in there and say, David there, he's the bad one and the rest are like fine, they're the average ones, right? And this ability is just simply not, like, we have that ability through other means, but not through the psychopathy checklist. That's simply not giving you that person that you think it's giving you when you score high on it. So that has all sorts of consequences. We're doing something we shouldn't be doing, really. That's what that means, right?
So maybe a moratorium on the use of psychopathy as a label in the courts? Is that what you're calling for?
Yeah, I would say we should stop using it, that checklist immediately, and it's for a simple reason, and it's just that there's no evidence that it's doing what we think it's doing or what practitioners thinks it's doing. So it's generating a wave of disinformation in the system that we don't want, right? And of course, all that relates to justice and fairness issues and so on down the line, right? But we want to have evidence-based decision making. And this is not one of them, right?
I kind of don't believe in like truly good or morally good people and evil people and bad people as a classification. I think we're all just kind of people. We're all capable of good. We're all capable of bad. Maybe some they're more capable of bad than good kind of thing. There are worse people than others, maybe. Is that a better way to think of it, or am I just kind of making it up as I go along, and that's not a great way to classify people?
No, I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think a lot of people would agree with you. I certainly think that that's more the accurate description, right? So something I do with my students often, David, is that I ask them where they're from, and they're often from very privileged, social context, and they would be flabbergasted if they saw violence in their everyday life, and they would be like, "Oh, that's a terrible thing," right? But most people don't grow up in a society where violence doesn't exist. Most people grow up in a society where violence is very much a present, everyday thing, right? So this thing that there are evil and good people, human beings are very complex animals at the end of the day, and we can both do evil and then go home and kiss our kids goodnight when we go to bed, right? It's just like part of that complexity of the human psychology, I think. And it tells a much more true story if you look at it through a more nuanced lens, if you will.
Well, I'm here with Rasmus Larsen. He's a forensic epistemology professor at the University of Toronto. Do check out his book. It's called Psychopathy Unmasked. That's available wherever books are sold. Rasmus, I really appreciate you coming on the show. It's been a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Darius. Thanks for having me.
Let me tell you about the Last Show podcast. It's the perfect podcast for you if you missed any of the night show and you want to catch up on what you didn't hear, or if you're not going to be with us on a given night, you can check out the show on the go, streamed whenever you like. Also, there's a little bit of bonus content on the podcast that you won't hear on the radio program. So you're going to want to head to www.lastshow.pizza. That's lastshow.pizza in your web browser, not .com, never .com. And there you can find out more details, or just search David Cooper Last Show in your favorite podcast app. Subscribe. Do it now. Sorry, I don't mean to tell you what to do. I'm not your mother, so, do what you want. But we would love it if you did. All right, here's what you're going to catch next. Boredom. I'm not just talking about that feeling when you're in line to get your driver's license renewed. New research says that boredom might actually motivate us, cause us to seek changes, even unpleasant ones. So in just a few moments, we're asking, could the very thing that makes us feel asleep, boredom, be life's way of waking us up? Oh, that's deep.
Want to be part of the Last Show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
Routine, adjective, used to describe an individual whose spirit is unyielding, unconstrained, one who navigates life on their own terms, effortlessly. They do not always show up on time, but when they arrive, you notice. An individual confident in their contradictions. They know the rules, but behave as if they do not exist. Routine, the new fragrance by Miu Miu, defined by you.
Broadcasting intimate details and useless information from an undisclosed location in New York City. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Boredom, that itch, that dull ache. It is not just a drag. There's research that suggests it might actually push us to seek change in our lives, even to seek out unpleasant experiences. Boredom, the very thing you dread, may be the thing that makes you change your life when you feel like it's going nowhere. I'm here with someone who worked on that research. He is a psychology professor at Utah State University, and his name is Dr. Shane Bench. Shane, welcome in.
Hi, David. Thanks for having me.
I think a lot about boredom. I don't like going on my phone when I feel bored. I feel like I need to feel that feeling. So I ruminate and I want to make changes. And sometimes those changes can be wild. I won't get too much into it, but I am divorced. From a psychological perspective, though, like when you go to study boredom, how do you even define it?
Yeah, that's a great question. And there's been different approaches to quantifying, so operationalizing boredom. Some approaches have been relatively dismissive, talking about boredom as a fleeting state that's just kind of ephemeral and it passes. But More recent research has looked at it as a functional emotion, so something that may have benefits in certain situations, so encouraging us to disengage from one task and pursue something new.
So it can be a motivator in that sense if it encourages us to disengage with whatever's boring us and seek something new. Would you say it's like a powerful motivator for human behavior?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's at the heart of a lot of debate of boredom research. Our perspective, my colleague and I, Heather Lynch, argue that boredom is a motivating, activated state that encourages us to do something different.
And what differences do people often do when they're bored? My understanding is it's not always positive.
Yeah, it can be a range of things. So, our perspective is that boredom motivates us to do anything that is different. So, it can be something that's novel, so completely new to us, or it can be something that's affectively novel. So, elicit a different affective experience than we're experiencing in the moment. For instance, if something positive makes us bored, it could encourage us to experience something that's affectively negative.
Just to be less technical, can you give me an example of something like that?
Yeah, for instance, if I got bored from, I don't know, watching funny videos, it could encourage me to seek something that causes a different affective state or emotional state. So maybe watching videos that are make me feel sad or disgusted even.
Now, any study that involves cockroaches and dirty dishes is one that I'm particularly interested in. Talk to me about the mechanics. Like, how do you come to these conclusions? How do you study boredom when you actually interview people?
Yeah, so in our study, we've used a particularly powerful elicitor of boredom. We've had people watch neutral videos, or I'm sorry, images that have been rated as neutral by thousands of people. So these come from an image database that researchers use. Once they're really bored, and I mean intensely bored, we give them an option to watch something else. So they can look at pictures that are continue to be neutral or pictures that are affectively negative. So again, these are images that are rated by thousands of people to be consistently negative. Things like cockroaches and burning buildings and dirty dishes. And we give them an option.
And so people are there, they're looking at like landscapes or like, docks on a beach, just like really boring neutral stuff. And you say, hey, do you want to see stuff that might upset you that's negative? And people say yes.
Yeah, and these are really boring pictures. So they're kind of things like a park bench just sitting by itself, or like a light socket or a lamp, and they watch these until they are intensely bored, and then they're given a choice. And people who the more boredom they report, the more likely they are to choose the negative image set.
Let's talk about what boredom might signal in our life, like this idea that it's lost meaning. Is that a healthy kind of way of thinking? Like if I lay in bed and think, God, my life is so boring, can there be a healthy outcome to that?
Oh, that's a great question. It could have a healthy outcome, right? Our idea is that boredom, much like other emotions, can be good in the right circumstance, but many times, particularly in today's society, it can lead to negative things. So if I'm bored in class, for instance, and I'm not paying attention, that's going to result in harms, both short-term and long-term. But if I'm bored with something at home where I'm not doing anything fun or engaging, and it encourages me to try something else, then it could be positive.
But what I'm hearing here is change is the main thing. For example, if I'm bored in class, deeply bored in class, and I disengage, I could flunk out of school. That is a major life change, whether I wanted it or not. Or these positive changes we make in our life is change and a desire for change, what the real deep thing that's going on here when we're bored.
Yeah, so that's what we think is happening, is boredom is signaling us to disengage from a current state. So functional emotions work by helping us solve a current problem. But the issue with models that have considered this is there's never been a way for us to disengage from something once we've accomplished that goal. So for instance, if I really want to attain something and then I do, I would be happy. But how long should that happiness persist? And at what point would staying fixated on that goal that I've already achieved become harmful as opposed to beneficial? So we argue that boredom then results when we start to need to disengage and find something new. So it motivates us to try something else.
Motivates us to change. Well, it sounds like we can harness it for good, like positive, exciting change. We can harness it for bad, negative, exciting change. How can I control my boredom and use it as a superpower to try to get me to get to the next level of productivity or try some interesting life experiences that could benefit me?
Yeah, so it's all about situation selection, right? So in the right circumstance, boredom could help us disengage from something that's no longer beneficial. But it's variable when that can occur. A great example I like to think of is the endless scroll of social media, where that's literally designed to stop you from feeling boredom and disengaging and trying something else. So boredom could really help there, as long as it can beat the tech.
Interesting. So maybe get off the phones and experience our boredom, but try to do it in a way where there's a positive change outcome.
Yeah, and that's the challenging part. Is boredom isn't going to encourage us necessarily to do something rewarding or even beneficial for us. It's just going to encourage us to do something that's different from what we're currently experiencing. And so then it's kind of up to what we're around and what's available to us.
What are there any long-term consequences to being bored all the time or making choices that will make us bored?
Oh, that's a great question. That ties closer to what's called trait boredom, or the propensity to become bored over time. People who are more likely to experience boredom over time have a host of negative outcomes correlated with that, right? So they experience lower meaning in life. They're more likely to take risks, and even some correlates to substance use and those kinds of things.
It's just so interesting to me that you're kind of categorizing it as neither good nor bad. It can be both. Is this kind of a new way to frame boredom? Because I think for a long time, people have just either written it off, like you said at the beginning of the interview, psychologists didn't care about it, or they treated it as mostly negative.
Yeah, and it's kind of a new perspective with emotions in general. So really in the last maybe 15 years, functional perspectives have gained popularity with even emotions like happiness, where it was once thought that, always being happy was better, but there are times when we should be happy and times when we shouldn't. And so it's good to have that variability and recognize that when it's rewarding, it's good, and we should also experience other things.
Recapping here, knowing what you know, studying what you've studied about boredom and doing this research, any piece of advice for the average person to harness boredom for good?
Oh, that's a tough one. I would try to find opportunities to experience different things. So it doesn't have to be doing things. It can be thinking about things and engaging in conversation, and considering new material and new ideas. Anything that's giving us an opportunity to change what we're currently experiencing.
Well, I hope this show wasn't boring for you. I know at the commercial break, Shane, you were like, I haven't done many interviews like this. Was this a non-boring thing for you?
Oh, this was great. I had a wonderful time. Thank you, David.
Well, Shane Bench is a psychology professor at Utah State University. Shane, thank you again. I appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
There's a new ridiculous trend amongst young people. They're turning their cell phones into landlines. Yes, cords, walls, even rotary dials. But why are young folks doing this? Is it nostalgia? Is it utter insanity? Or maybe it's an effort to unplug while worshiping retro technology. What's next? The telegraph? Pagers? But it's not as dumb as it seems. I think we all have notification fatigue with our cell phones, so maybe the landline is a good thing to bring back. We'll unpack all of this up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Listening to this podcast? Smart move. Being financially savvy? Smart move. Another smart move? Having State Farm help you create a competitive price when you choose to bundle home and auto. Bundling, just another way to save with the personal price plan. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Prices are based on rating plans that vary by state. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability, amount of discounts and savings, and eligibility vary by state.
For those who know that questioning everything includes questioning this show's existence. The Last Show with David Cooper.
Is there something special, magic, about those old phones? Like rotary ones or touch-tone ones that you see in 70s sitcoms? I'm thinking of the bar at Cheers. Is there something special about them? Well, young people seem to think so. So much so that they're making them and somehow combining them with their cell phones and really, I don't know, idealizing that era when we had landlines. And I'm here to discuss just that with Kelsey Vlamis, a reporter at Business Insider. Kelsey, you've recently written about this. What got you curious about young people using landlines?
Well, I started seeing young people romanticize the idea of landlines on social media. And I'm a millennial. I grew up with a landline. But I realize even though it sounds kind of nice, like, oh, yeah, you're done with your phone. You don't need to carry it around you all the time. The internet in your pocket. It doesn't seem realistic to a lot of people's lives. Like, we rely on our phones for so much. So then I started noticing people doing weird things like chaining their phone to a wall, like chaining an iPhone to a wall. So you basically still have an iPhone, but you're recreating the physicality of a landline, at least, where it's like stuck in this specific place. And I thought that was fascinating.
My buddy, she has like a rotary phone that's secretly Bluetooth, and it pairs with her cell phone. So she can be sitting there using a rotary phone, but behind the scenes, it's paired with her iPhone or whatever. Have you seen people doing things like that?
Yeah, so I interviewed one person who did that. Now she is selling them. She runs the account Cat GPT. She talks about AI, but she has these physical phones she's selling, and it's exactly that. They're Bluetooth phones. And she said she made one herself, and she just loved the idea of being able to get alerted when she got a phone call without having, again, to be open to every other possible notification on her phone. So she can leave her phone anywhere, but when someone actually calls, the landline rings, she can answer the landline, and she can make calls that way instead of, sometimes I go to make a call, I pick up my iPhone, I actually have a thing to do that's important on it, and I somehow end up doing something totally unrelated. I automatically open Instagram. This way you could
sucked into the phone hole, I believe is what it's called. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly that. And so, if I actually just need to call my parents, maybe all I need is the landline. I still know my parents' landline numbers, so I can pick up the landline phone, without the risk of getting sucked into my iPhone.
Is it romanticizing old technology, young people that are like chaining their phone to the walls, investigating landlines, pairing with rotary phones? Or is it like notification fatigue where they just don't want the constant, barrage of information? Or is it both? I guess it's not a binary.
I think it's probably both. I mean, we for sure see young people romanticizing old technology, like wired headphones are like coming back, people carrying around Walkman, CD players. But I mean, and also like Y2K fashion is coming back. Like there's definitely romanticization of this pre-phone time where people just existed without honestly sitting on their phones all the time. So I think they really do go hand in hand.
Now, there are products that are a little more practical that kind of cut down notification fatigue or getting sucked into the phone hole. These dumb phones, which are basically like cell phones of the early 2000s where you can just sort of text, call. Maybe there's a map on there, but it's not like every app. There's no TikTok. There's no video sharing. Are you seeing people interested in that kind of technology?
Yeah, and we've reported on some of that too, like the rise in like quote unquote dumb phones where some people want a phone to be able to do some things, but not everything. I think that's definitely also happening. I think for some of the people I spoke to for the story I wrote, they just didn't find it totally realistic. Like sometimes you just do need the capabilities of a smartphone. I mean, I use my phone to sign into important accounts like double authentication or whatever, So there are just like in the modern day, it's difficult. There are people doing it. I'm really amazed by people who can do it.
So talk to me about some of the ways that young people are turning off their phones that isn't just silly, like, a rotary phone. Are there things that young people are doing to just sort of be off them when stereotypically we think of them as always on them?
Sure, yeah. So like one person who chained her phone to the wall, that was like a week-long experiment, but she, now she tries to leave her phone physically away from her. Another person I interviewed created a phone dock station. So she basically just created a little thing, put it on her wall. And when she comes home from work, she puts her phone there. She hangs up her phone instead of just carrying it around with her for the rest of the evening. And it sounds so simple. I feel like you're like, well, won't you just like go grab it? And I think what was like shocking about this is the people who told me that they created these physical boundaries around their phone. They were like, yeah, for a couple of days, it was like kind of difficult. I kept going back to it. But the actual physical space made me not want to be on it. It really was like an out of sight, out of mind thing. And I thought that was fascinating because it sounds too simple to be true. But it seems to be working. And there is some science to back that up. One study from several years ago, basically gave people tasks. And if they had their phone on the desk next to them or even in a bag near them, but they couldn't see it, or then totally in another room. Like the people who had the phone in the other room were able to focus on the task the longest. And even the people who had the phone tucked away a little bit more than the people who had the phone just on their desk. So I feel like the physical space aspect is really interesting.
It is. I kind of do this, but not for the Gen Z shutting off technology angle. I do it for sleep hygiene. So I plug my phone in at the end of the day in the living room, and then I bought me one of those dumb alarm clocks with the LEDs or LCD screen that goes deet, 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 and it helps me sleep better. Have you spoken to anyone about that? Like just, sleeping better when there isn't constant notifications on your nightstand?
Definitely. I feel like that is like that's like the first step of this, that most people realize, oh, if I don't sleep with my phone in my room, I won't scroll in the morning or scroll right before bed. And I think and that was, one of the Gen Zers, like the one person who trained her phone to all said that. She was like, I noticed if I didn't sleep with my phone in the same room as me, I slept better. And I think that kind of kicks that off because, yeah, people want to sleep better. And then you realize, oh, if this works for sleeping better, maybe this will just work for being mindful in other aspects of my life.
It's interesting to me, this study you mentioned where the phone was either on the desk, in the bag in the room, or out of the room. You'd think in the bag and out of the room would be the same. It's both out of reach, but out of the room was better. I feel the same way. Just like knowing it's on my nightstand, even if I'm not going to grab it, somehow changes it. Somehow this act that I could grab it at any time and I wouldn't have to go through the effort of switching rooms changes it mentally for me. And I guess it's the same when you've got a dock station in the front of your home.
Yeah, I know. I would love to know more about like how that actually works in our brains. But I totally agree. It feels like if it's close by, somehow it is taking up more of my mental space. And if it's not nearby at all, if it's not even an option, I was camping over the weekend, didn't have cell service. Don't even consider pulling out. You don't even consider pulling it out. Like you think you're habituated to it. But for some reason, when it's not an option, it's really not an option. It makes a difference.
Talking to all these people, researching this stuff, I know you're not like a postdoctoral researcher of cell phone studies at whatever university, but what recommendations would you have to people that kind of have that notification fatigue? Maybe lessons learned from young people with these experiments of landlines.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think I love the idea of a Bluetooth, a landline Bluetooth phone. I think that's a great idea. Those are available. I actually, after I wrote this study, I set up a landline setting on my iPhone, which is like the custom focus modes where the only things that can come in are texts from certain people and phone calls. And I created a little docking station where that's where I put my phone. And I don't have the excuse of, well, what if someone important calls or texts? Because I turn those notifications up and I will hear those. So that's interesting. I just started doing that. And so far I feel like it is making a difference. It's new, but I think just having a designated place to put your phone and not just carrying it around all the time really just can make a huge difference. I think that's a good way to create a physical boundary without giving up your iPhone.
And when you say difference, you mean like you're sleeping better, you're happier, you're not doom scrolling? Like what difference can that make?
I would say not mindlessly scrolling. Like it kind of takes away, you kind of have to confront that, like, oh, I got up, I grabbed this out of this designated spot I got for it to scroll on Instagram. Like that feels, I don't know if it's like shaming yourself a little bit, but it brings you back to like, I don't actually want to be doing this right now. I'd rather be doing a hobby. Like maybe I want to draw or knit. And it kind of I feel like I do find myself then sitting on the couch and actually reading because I didn't just pick up my phone and get sucked into it.
Cool. My mindless activity is television. If I'm on my phone all the time, how am I going to make time for TV? I feel like if we'd had this conversation 30 years ago, the brain rot activity would have been television. But now it's people's cell phones. The stuff seems cyclical.
Yeah, now television's better somehow, but yeah.
Well, the piece is called Gen Z is Desperate for Landlines and Creating Their Own Makeshift Versions with Cell Phones. You can read that in Business Insider, where Kelsey Vlamis works as a reporter. Coming up after the break. Seems these days just about every other headline I read or news program I hear says that AI is coming for your job. But when one reporter sat down with researchers, they said, calm down, don't panic. The cyborgs aren't coming for your livelihood yet. That's a relief, and details of that relief up next.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
At Blinds.com, it's not just about window treatments. It's about you, your style, your space, your way. Whether you DIY or want the pros to handle it all, you'll have the confidence of knowing it's done right. From free expert design help to our 100% satisfaction guarantee, everything we do is made to fit your life and your windows. Because at Blinds.com, the only thing we treat better than windows is you. Visit Blinds.com now for up to 50% off with minimum purchase plus a professional measure at no cost. Rules and restrictions apply.
Exploring both interstellar and interpersonal space-time continuums. The Last Show with David Cooper.
If these scary thoughts keep you up at night, AI is coming for my job. I'm going to lose everything. I won't be able to find work. The computers are going to do everything. What will we possibly do? Then we're all doomed. Maybe don't panic. At least don't panic yet. That's what Tim Paradis, future of work reporter at Business Insider, is saying. And I'm a little panicked about AI, especially listening to all these voice cloning things. Am I going to be an AI radio host in 5 minutes? That's the fear. Tim, please help calm me and many people down.
Well, I would say that it may not be 5 minutes, but it might be eventually. So it's hard to say how long it'll be. But some of the researchers I spoke to for this latest piece was they were saying essentially that these things take time. Technology takes time to work its way into corporate America and other businesses, and so therefore there is reason to be concerned, but it's also not something that's likely to happen overnight. And I think we've seen that where there's been a lot of hype about AI, but maybe not that much disruption as of yet, at least according to some research.
Well, that's comforting. I think a lot of the headlines are sensationalizing right now. Everyone's saying there are no jobs left, and they're reading these articles at their jobs, but they're worrying. But I'm picturing, like, you remember the ladies on the rollerblades at the switchboard centers at telephone switching, offices where they'd run and connect lines on the rollerblades? That's a job that doesn't exist anymore. I guess everyone's worried. Are they the lady on the rollerblade? And in a few years, their copywriting job is gone. Their marketing job is gone. Some jobs are going to get hit worse and more quickly than others, aren't they?
For sure. And I think I think we're all poor for the fact that there are people rollerblading to connect calls at this point. But yeah, certain jobs potentially, if you think of things like, I don't know, like you mentioned, copywriting, customer service, like some of these jobs are a little bit easier to automate. So that's why there's, the thought that if you're doing something that's in some way manual, or if you're doing, working in a hospital or doing these kinds of things, those are going to be a lot harder to replace, at least in the short term. But I also think it's worth pointing out that some of the concern and the anxiety that people have around the labor market is kind of unrelated to AI. It's just about the labor market in general. And so then it's easy when AI is ascendant and the other part of the labor market feels like it's decelerating to then point the finger at AI. And so far, at least according to some researchers, they say that there really hasn't been a huge effect.
I feel like you can say at least according to some researchers at the end of any sentence and make it sound believable. But yeah. No, I think this is comforting. The economy is kind of shifting. There's worrying things happening. People are losing jobs because of cuts. The tariffs are in the mix. It's a mess. And it's easy to point at AI and say, well, it's replacing everyone's job. Is that what you're basically saying some people are doing?
Yeah, and it's a situation where again, because there are so many mixed signals and so much noise, if you will, in the system, that I think it does feel like it's easy to say that this is the cause. But as you pointed to things like tariffs, pressure on corporate profits in some cases, they are spending a lot of money on AI. So you can see a world where they do want to cut out costs where they can, where corporate leaders would want to do that. But again, it's just not clear that there's been a major effect just yet. But I have also talked to folks who have done research on this and said, say certain entry-level jobs, as an example, the listings for those are going down a little bit. And they in AI-sensitive industries or AI-sensitive roles. And so, it does raise the question. But then there are other people who will say, well, some of these entry-level roles were sort of already going down anyway because they just didn't need as many of these people, maybe related to AI, but maybe not entirely. And so it's a really murky picture in a lot of ways.
Is the comfort that in this idea of not panicking, is it more that researchers are saying that AI is slightly shifting jobs, shifting the duties, changing how we do our job rather than replacing us?
For sure. That's a great point. So initially, for many people, they won't necessarily just be kicked to the curb because AI took their job, but it will start to change their job. It will maybe take over certain aspects of how they do it. Maybe they can can become more productive in what they're doing, but it won't necessarily be just a binary thing where I'm doing my job and then the next day boss comes in and says, sorry, AI is doing your entire job now. It could be a situation where someone told me, instead of
10 people in a department, they might only need 5 eventually, but we're not there yet. So it's not even necessarily a wholesale evisceration so much as a change.
Is a better way of looking at it that AI is taking our tasks as workers rather than our jobs? Like AI is doing a part of our job. The copywriter doesn't lose his or her job, but rather the copywriter uses AI to assist them in writing massive amounts of copy. Is that a better way of looking at it?
Absolutely. And I think most jobs are broken down really into tasks, right? We all do. And that's why it's so hard in some ways to automate, because we don't just do one thing. Even somebody as an example, the customer service example I gave before, like people tend to do a lot of different tasks. And so that's where the automation part is hard, because it's not like we're all one trick pony and we could just do this one thing and therefore it's really easy to turn around and automate it. But because individual tasks can be automated, that it is a situation where AI can take on some of these things or help you so that you start further down the field. And that therefore, to your example about the copywriter, instead of starting with a blank screen and a blinking cursor, you might have a quick draft that AI helps you with initially, and then you can get that done in, say, a third of the time that it took you before. So then potentially you could do more work, right?
Corporations are chasing efficiencies right now, and they're very interested in using AI to chase those efficiencies. Should the average employee be worried that companies are doing this because it's going to lead to fewer hires later, fewer jobs that they do around this word efficiency? Should it scare us?
It's a good question. I mean, I suppose it's something to keep an eye on. I don't think it should necessarily scare people ultimately, because it did make sense that companies would want to do this, right? But it's also a concern if it's used as a catch-all to sort of, we're just going to get rid of people and we're going to call it AI efficiency, but we just wanted to lay some people off. There really is a lot of, like I mentioned earlier, it's murky, and there really is a lot of noise around this, and ultimately, some very smart people that I've spoken to about this have said, we just don't know yet. It's too early days. And so one of the researchers I mentioned who had said, that there really hasn't been from the Yale Budget Lab, so a reputable source, had said, we haven't really seen a demonstrable impact yet, is saying this is very early days, very early innings. And so therefore it's a little bit hard to say where this will all end up. But I think, overall, sure, companies want to have efficiency, but I think it's, it can be used. It can be a little bit of a boogeyman too.
I hear this one a lot, that young people are going to get hit hardest on this one. People entering their career for the first time. There'll be less of those jobs. Is that more fear-mongering? Is there truth to that one? What are experts saying about young people just graduating, hitting that first job? Should we be worried for them?
I think it's reasonable to be worried for folks who are earlier in their career if there is an appetite from companies to, say, replace what would have been, an intern or an entry-level worker with a bot. But it's, in many cases, it's just not there yet. It's almost like there are fewer entry-level jobs, at least in some industries, but that may or may not be related to AI. So there's a concern about people getting experience and being able to sort of work their way up the ladder. People who are really senior, as an example, maybe can take their experience and then they can take any tailwind they get from AI and sort of combine those two things to get more done and still have that insight. It's just going to be maybe harder for some people at the bottom of the ladder coming up to get that experience. Part of the reason as well, there's not as much turnover at the top, and so therefore, in some cases, they're just not creating the opportunities for people at the bottom, the entry-level folks. And so it can be as much a function of that, of like, I need someone to, people are working longer, things like that. I need someone to move out so I can, someone else can move up and then I can take that entry-level spot.
Finally, if we check in like 6 months, 12 months, a year, 5 years on this topic, do you think experts will still be saying, don't panic about AI taking our jobs, or do you think the tune will have shifted?
5 years feels like an eternity for me to even opine on, but I would say, 6 months, 12 months, I would hope that people are saying still don't panic, because I don't see a world where companies are going to say, we're going to just, CEOs are going to say, we're going to close up our factory floor or our, processing floor, trading floor, what have you, and just have computers do the whole thing. It just doesn't seem reasonable. There's still going to need to be human oversight, which may be a thing that companies just say so it feels good, but it does seem like we're going to need to have people, as they say, the cliche has kind of become human in the loop. So it feels like there still will need to be somebody around.
Well, the piece is called Don't Panic, AI Isn't Here for Your Job Yet. You can read that in Business Insider, where Tim Paradis works as a future of work reporter. Tim, I appreciate you coming on the show. Always nice to chat.
Likewise. Thanks, David.
Is financial stress eating away at your focus at work, your sleep at home, maybe even your sanity? Up next, could something called a payroll-delivered emergency savings account actually save your wallet and your workday? Details in a minute.
Want to be part of the last show with David Cooper? Call us and join the conversation. 1-888-505-6644.
In the 70s, 4 young women were found dead. For nearly 50 years, their cases went cold. I'm Nancy Hixt, a senior crime reporter for Global News. In the season finale of Crime Beat, I share how investigators uncovered shocking evidence of a serial killer and hear exclusive interviews with the killer's family. Listen to the full season of Crime Beat early and ad-free on Amazon Music by asking Alexa to play the podcast Crime Beat.
When the day is done, we're just getting started. The last show with David Cooper.
Financial stress, it doesn't clock out when you do. It can follow workers into the office, and it costs billions in lost productivity. Imagine that, financial stress costing billions. But there might be something to fix it, and it might be a simple fix. Emergency savings built right into your paycheck. This might sound like, yay, more paycheck deductions, but hear out who's proposing it. He's an associate professor of marketing at the Department of Business in the University of Winnipeg. His name is Fabrizio Di Muro. Fabrizio, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
This sounds like maybe similar to a retirement account, but not something to be used for retirement, something to be used at times of great financial pressure, which happens to more and more of us these days. Tell me about a payroll-delivered emergency savings account, and how might it benefit me as a salaried worker?
Yeah, absolutely. That is a great question. So the way the program works is, again, it is a workplace-based emergency savings program. So employees will receive a certain amount will be deducted from their paycheck and deposited into an emergency savings account. And then when an unexpected expense arises, you can use these funds to pay for such expenses. And the reason that this is expected to benefit many Canadians is that a significant amount of Canadians are facing a lot of financial stress. So 50% of Canadians are living paycheck to paycheck. 50% of Canadians can't afford a 1-week delay in pay. 25% of Canadians can't pay for a $500 unexpected expense. If that unexpected expense rises to $1,000, 60% of Canadians can't pay that unexpected expense. So if you have an emergency savings account, you'll feel less financial stress because when these unexpected expenses arise, you'll be ready.
I got questions, though. Who controls the access? Like, it seems like I got to fight some company and prove that I have a qualifying event. How will I get access to the money? What constitutes an emergency? And what'll prevent people just from dipping into an account like this when, I don't know, they're under a tiny bit of pressure rather than a large stressor?
The account is in the employee's name, so you control the money.
Full stop. So it's really just assisting with financial literacy in some sense, just dividing where one's money goes.
Yeah, the employer is just the mechanism, but the account is in your name. So you don't have to tell the employer why you're taking money out.
Interesting. So it really is just encouraging an employee to split the money into two places? Like, what makes it so special? What makes it different than, I don't know, just depositing into two accounts?
So we do recommend a 2-tiered emergency savings account. That's at the Financial Wellness Lab. That's what we recommend, is that when employees build this fund through an employer, that the first tier is $2,500 for more frequent, less impactful financial shocks, like a car repair, a house repair. The second tier is 3 or 4 months of income saved for less frequent but more impactful financial shocks.
So maybe like getting laid off.
Yeah, exactly. Like a job loss, long-term illness, and so forth.
So why would deducting right at payroll be such an effective tool for kind of helping people with these emergency accounts?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. And the reason is it makes savings automatic and easy for Canadians. So if it's deducted from your paycheck, you've saved the money before you even have access to it, before you can even touch it. People struggle to save for sort of four main reasons. I mean, some people underestimate the odds of experiencing financial stress, so maybe they don't save. Other people do want to save, but the issue they have is that, right, we value present rewards over future rewards, right? There's something we want to spend the money on today, and we say we'll save later.
And if we see the money in our main account, we'd be more likely to do it.
Yeah, exactly. You might say, look, let's go to the Blue Jays game 7 tonight. There's some money. When's the next time this is going to happen? So you don't end up saving, you end up spending. It's also, even if something like that doesn't come up, we tend to procrastinate when it comes to savings because it's an unpleasant task.
Interesting. And you guys are doing this right now, like you're piloting a program where employees are doing this right now. What are you hoping to learn, and what's the initial response to it?
Well, we've only just started. We have one employer who is interested in the program, and they're in the very early stages. So it's just getting underway. What we hope to see is that Canadians will experience less financial stress when they participate in this program. In turn, that financial stress there'll be less financial stress that spills over into the workplace, and that $70 billion that Canadian employers lose in lost productivity, we expect that figure to significantly decline.
Let's talk about this lost productivity. What exactly does it mean when we say financial stress loses so much productivity? Like, what would be some examples of that for the layperson who's not, used to reading financial papers and reading financial journals and things like this?
Yeah, absolutely. So lost productivity can manifest itself in a number of ways. So people could have decreased motivation to work. They could have strained relationships at work. They might just, as they're working, the source of their financial stress might pop in their mind, like, how am I going to replace that furnace? And then they start actually thinking about it instead of working.
Now, I got to say, I'm all for like employee programs, like retirement savings accounts. I'm very much pro-labor. I think benefits and helping employees with, retirement savings matches, taking parts of my paycheck for good programs. I'm all for these things. And yet I'm sort of thinking as I hear this proposal, it's just another deduction. I'm sure you have a good argument for why this is a good deduction and you're seeing positive results and stuff. But to the person skeptical, what would you say?
So a couple things. First of all, if you look at the stats, only 33% of Canadians don't have any emergency savings at all. Another 50%, they have some emergency savings, but nowhere near sufficient. So it might be only 10 or 15% of Canadians that have a properly established emergency savings account. So and I don't blame Canadians for this because it's difficult to save money. Many Canadians are honestly trying their best, but wages haven't changed very much. The cost of living has risen. So it's very difficult for people to save. So asking Canadians to do this on their own hasn't been working. So we need a new approach. And the workplace is an excellent solution, we think, because it can make, if it's a paycheck deduction, it can make savings automatic and easy. It will benefit Canadians because they'll feel less financial stress. And if they feel less financial stress, that means that less financial stress will spill over into the workplace, and that $70 billion figure in lost productivity should be significantly reduced.
Is that the main benefit you're looking for, to recoup some of this lost productivity? Or if these accounts become common, we'll see other positive benefits on the individual worker?
Well, we'll see benefits for both the individual and the employer. If employees have emergency savings accounts, if they have emergency savings funds, they're less likely to dip into debt to cover unexpected expenses. They're less likely to liquidate RRSPs. So Canadians will benefit because they'll feel less financial stress and their financial situation will be better. Canadian employers will benefit because, look, we live in a global competitive economy. Canadian employers cannot afford to lose $70 billion in lost productivity. It's going to benefit both Canadians and Canadian employers, and probably our society as a whole, because competitive Canadian companies will benefit all Canadians.
Well, Fabrizio Di Muro is an associate professor of marketing at the Department of Business at the University of Winnipeg. Fabrizio, thanks for educating me about these payroll-delivered emergency savings accounts. I appreciate you being on the show.
Yes, you're welcome, David. It was a pleasure to be on the show, and thank you so much for having me.
That is our program. Thank you, listeners, singular intended, for tuning in. Do not forget The Last Show has a podcast. Catch those segments you missed or check out some of our bonus podcast-only content you won't hear on the radio program. Head to www.lastshow.pizza for details and how to subscribe, or search David Cooper Last Show in your favorite podcast app. Well, I've said my name and the name of the show one too many times, but I'll say it again, and then I'll say goodnight. I'm David Cooper, and this was The Last Show. Good night.
And Doug. Here we have the Limu Emu in its natural habitat, helping people customize their car insurance and save hundreds with Liberty Mutual. Fascinating. It's accompanied by his natural ally, Doug.
Limu? Is that guy with the binoculars watching us?
Cut the camera. They see us.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Savings vary. Underwritten by Liberty Mutual Insurance Company and affiliates. Excludes Massachusetts.